The Interstellar Academy of Vorthen Prime had existed for 600 years. In that time, it had catalogued 49 spacefaring civilizations, documented 11 extinction events, and compiled the most comprehensive xenobiological database in the known galaxy. It had never, not once in 6 centuries, been forced to revise a species profile overnight. Until Mara Ellison lost her training glove. Commander Zyrex had not slept. This was unusual. Archivist-class Vortheni could enter restorative stasis in 40-second intervals, refreshing their neural pathways with clinical efficiency. But since 0300 standard hours, Zyrex had been sitting in the archive chamber, staring at a holographic file labeled Human, Cadet Profile, Ellison, Mara J., and feeling something he had not felt in 230 years of service. Unease. It had begun simply enough. A lost training glove, standard thermal regulation gear issued to all cadets during the cryo-combat module. Cadets lost equipment all the time. It was practically a rite of passage. The Academy's loss rate algorithm had a dedicated column for it. But then the why of how Mara Ellison lost her glove had reached his desk, and Commander Zyrex had begun reading, and now it was nearly dawn and he had not moved. He pulled up the incident report one more time. Incident report, Ref, VPA 7741 Cadet. Filed by Drill Instructor Foss, Keth 4, Crustacean Class. Subject, Cadet Mara Ellison, Human, age 22 standard years. Incident, unauthorized removal of thermal gear during cryo-combat exercise Sigma 9. At 2,140 hours, during live simulation of the Vortheni ice shelf engagement scenario, Cadet Ellison removed her right thermal glove and pressed her bare hand against the hull breach point to temporarily seal the gap. Ambient temperature at breach, -63 degrees Celsius. Duration of contact, 11 seconds. Cadet Ellison then directed 3 other cadets, a Lethian, a Gravan, and 1 Zephyri, to complete the patch while she maintained the seal. The breach was contained. No casualties. No mission failure. The thermal glove was left inside the hull, now sealed permanently. Cadet Ellison sustained mild frostbite, 2 fingers, right hand. She did not report to medical until after the post-mission debrief. When asked why she had not used her emergency kit, Cadet Ellison replied, and I quote, "The kit was on the other side of the breach. It would have taken longer to get it than to just use my hand." Zyrex set the report down. Just use my hand. He had run the numbers 17 times. 11 seconds of bare skin contact at -63 Celsius. The human hand contains approximately 27 bones, 34 muscles, and a network of nerves so dense that the pain signal alone, traveling at 70 meters per second, should have triggered immediate motor withdrawal. Every biological system in her body should have screamed at her to let go. She had held on for 11 seconds. Not because she was numb. The subsequent medical scan confirmed full nerve sensitivity. She had felt every fraction of a second. She had simply decided not to let go. Zyrex opened a secondary file. He had spent the last several hours pulling everything the Academy had on human biology and psychology. The existing species profile had been written 12 years ago, when the first 3 humans had enrolled. It described them as moderately durable, average pain threshold, notable for social bonding behaviors and creative problem solving, recommend moderate physical duty assignments, caution regarding emotional volatility, moderate, average, caution. He pulled up a second incident from a different cadet, human, male, enrolled the previous year. During a structural collapse drill, the cadet had lifted a support beam that the weight assessment marked as requiring 2 Gravan soldiers to move. Gravans were silicon-based, triple-jointed, and considered the Academy's premier heavy-load species. The human had moved the beam. Alone. With a dislocated shoulder. When asked why he had not waited for assistance, the cadet had said, someone was under it. Zyrex found a third incident. A female human cadet, first year, had stayed awake for 61 hours straight during the navigation crisis simulation, because her team's navigator had fallen ill and she had decided to cover the shift herself. When medical staff had pulled her off duty, she had reportedly argued for 4 minutes before collapsing mid-sentence and sleeping for 14 hours. Upon waking, her first words had been, "Did we pass?" They had. He kept reading. The pattern was everywhere, hiding in plain sight across 12 years of academy records, buried under moderate and average and caution. A human cadet who had talked down a hostile simulation AI by apologizing to it. A human cadet who had learned to pilot a Zephyr vessel, a craft specifically designed for species with 6 limbs, by modifying the controls himself during a weekend leave. A human cadet who, when told the mountain climb endurance test had a 30% completion rate among all species, had asked, "Has anyone tried going faster?" And then done exactly that, finishing before the cold could properly set in, exploiting a strategy so counterintuitive that the course administrators had needed to meet afterward to decide if it was allowed. It was allowed. Nothing in the rules said you couldn't outrun the cold. Zyrex leaned back in his chair. The existing profile wasn't wrong, exactly. Humans were socially bonded. Humans were creative. But whoever had written the profile had made a fundamental category error. They had measured human pain tolerance and found it moderate, because humans, in standard conditions, behave moderately. They complain. They wince. They prefer comfort, given the choice. But give them a reason, a teammate in danger, a mission at stake, a person under a beam, and something shifted. The calculations changed. The humans did not stop feeling pain. They simply stopped obeying it. It wasn't that they were physically extraordinary. It was that they had apparently decided, somewhere deep in their evolutionary history, that their bodies' warnings were suggestions. At 0600, Zyrex called Mara Ellison into the archive chamber. She was 22 years old, compact, brown-haired, and she walked in still wearing the medical wrap on 2 fingers of her right hand. She looked mildly curious and not at all intimidated, which Zyrex noted was itself a data point. Most cadets were intimidated by the archive chamber. Most cadets were intimidated by him. "Cadet Ellison," he said. "I have been reviewing your incident report." "Yes, sir." "I have a question." "Of course, sir." He looked at her directly. "Were you afraid?" She blinked. Considered. "Of the cold?" "Yeah, honestly. It hurt a lot. But you maintained contact for 11 seconds. The breach needed to be sealed. You could have called for another cadet. They were already doing their jobs, sir. I had a free hand." She paused, and then amended, with a slight twitch of her mouth, "one free hand." Zyrex was quiet for a moment. "Your species profile describes you as having a moderate pain threshold." Mara Ellison glanced at her bandaged fingers. "That seems about right. It does not account for what you did." "Well," she said slowly, "pain threshold and pain tolerance are different things, I think. Like, I'm not saying it didn't hurt. It definitely hurt. I just needed it to hurt for 11 seconds, and then we could fix it and it would stop hurting. That seemed worth it." Zyrex stared at her for a long moment. "I just needed it to hurt for 11 seconds. As if pain were a scheduling conflict. A minor inconvenience to be briefly accommodated and then resolved." He turned back to his console. "Thank you, Cadet. You are dismissed." "Is everything okay, sir?" "Everything is fine. I am simply updating some records." She nodded, satisfied, and left. Zyrex opened the human species profile. He deleted the word moderate. He deleted average. He deleted caution regarding emotional volatility. He was beginning to suspect that what the original author had mistaken for volatility was simply humans caring very much and acting accordingly. He stared at the blank document for a long moment. Then he began to type. Human pain threshold, moderate under standard conditions. Human pain tolerance, currently uncategorized, appears to be governed not by biological capacity but by individual assessment of mission necessity. Further study required. Recommend immediate revision of all physical and psychological duty assessments. Note: do not underestimate. The underestimation appears to be a consistent and recurring error across 12 years of Academy records, and it is an error this archive will not repeat. He saved the document. Outside, the twin suns of Vorthen Prime were rising, painting the Academy spires in cold gold light. Somewhere on campus, Cadet Mara Ellison was probably already at morning drills, bandaged fingers and all, doing precisely what was required of her, and then a little more. Commander Zyrex filed the revised profile. It would not be the last revision. He was already certain of that.